Everybody is vocal about the voice.
If any of the front benches from those opposite could have been bothered going to Garma on the weekend, what they would have seen was the unity.
And dropping today, fresh analysis of a few months' worth of News Corp polling, and it's suggesting the yes vote could fail.
Australians are witnessing an incompetent government that can't explain its plans for a voice.
It starts with recognition. Recognising the fact that Australia didn't start when Captain Cook got here.
The polling shows support for the yes vote is at 43% nationally, while the no vote sits at 46%. Opposition to the voice is strongest in Queensland, with 54% saying no and 39% saying yes. In WA, it's 52% no, 39% yes, and Tassie is 48% no, 43% yes. South Australia supports the voice at 48% yes, 42% no, as does New South Wales, 45% yes, 42% no. And Victorians are split even. It's tight.
Are you concerned?
Well, I'm absolutely determined that we've got to get out there and combat the scare campaign.
Do those polls worry you at all?
Not at all.
For the yes side to succeed, it needs the majority of a national vote in a majority of states. So today, the no camp are pretty chipper.
Good morning. The polls are showing that there is lack of support.
Well, it's failing so badly because of what it is.
It's essentially a power grab by activists.
All I've heard is a whole lot of hot air.
The problem is not that Aboriginal people haven't been listened to.
For a country who has done so well in terms of wanting what's best for Indigenous Australians, this referendum has taken us backward.
Others are urging a rethink.
What we need to do is make sure that we have a plan B, because if this goes downhill, the hurt that it is going to cause to those Indigenous communities, I'd imagine, is going to be quite significant.
However, despite the headwinds, optimism runs high in the yes camp, with their polling suggesting around a whopping 40% of Australians are still undecided.
We're having everything thrown at us, but we have so much hope and belief and faith.
It's about building a country where no one's held back and no one's left behind. And that is what the voice is all about.
Saw a glimpse of Senator Malarndirri McCarthy in that story. She's fresh from Garma at the weekend, and we'll hear more now. Senator, when the referendum was announced, it's worth remembering there was actually really strong support for the yes vote, and that has since been lost. Why is that?
Well, it was certainly a good weekend on Gulkula country there, Waleed, and everywhere I went was obviously incredible support, and people said, keep going. I've always known it was going to be tough going into the referendum. It's been made tougher by a lot of the disinformation and misinformation, but we're pretty resilient, Waleed, and we've just got to keep going right up till 6 p.m. on referendum day.
Sorry, so to be clear, is that your explanation for the loss of the yes vote? Is it entirely down to misinformation?
There's certainly been a lot of misinformation and disinformation, as you may find on social media. There's certainly been commentary that has been incredibly unhelpful, Waleed. I do believe that has caused significant distress to those people that I speak to, and have to kind of clarify things. And that is sort of a common theme I notice as I'm travelling.
Senator, you've got the floor now. Let's clear some of this disinformation up. What are people getting wrong?
Well, I can clearly say that you won't be asked to pay the rent. That's a really important one that seems to come up at different times across different meetings. I've had someone stand up and say that people think that they have to pay a certain amount. That's not the case. This voice is about enabling First Nations people to have a voice and to give advice on pieces of legislation and policy that impacts them. But there is no veto rights. You know, the Parliament itself will be able to make decisions knowing they've taken into consideration what the voice advice has been if we are successful in this referendum.
Senator, you say no one will have to pay the rent, but, I mean, that's another way of saying, well, hang on, the voice could actually ask for reparation, and the voice clearly will ask for treaty. I'm sure that's what people are hearing, and I'm sure that's why people are now more than ever reluctant to tick the yes box.
Well, we've seen treaty take place in a number of jurisdictions already. Right there in Victoria, you're seeing it take place. You've got the First Peoples Assembly where there's mature conversation and responsible conversation occurring, and you're leading the way. In Queensland, they're doing the same. So it's not new. It really isn't. So it's important to point out that this is about coming together and talking and working through things, and yet First Nations people haven't had that opportunity to rise above the close the gap, the fact that we have high rates of suicide, babies that are not born with the right birth weight. These are critical matters to First Nations people, and if we can change that by enabling First Nations people to have a voice in influencing those decisions where it matters, it will be great for our country.
Everybody cares about that, but those state decisions you talk about were not put to a referendum. They weren't embedded in our constitution. And I think that's where Australians who are either unsure or unwilling to vote yes are feeling that they'll vote no, me included.
Well, let me say this, that the request by First Nations people who gathered at Anangu Country near Uluru was exactly for that, to enable a voice, to be enshrined in the Constitution, the rule book that governs the Westminster system of governance in this country. And it is really simply a simple request. And I do believe that even from the Northern Territory, when we reflect on policies that were made there, for example, around the Northern Territory intervention, and people had no say. So it is important, I think, for Australians to realise this is not just about this current government. If the voice is successful, it's about saying, yes, there should always be a First Nations voice, irrespective of who's in government.
Senator, before we let you go, I can't help but notice the vivid green and gold that you're wearing. Is this just your normal get-up? Or...
Can I sneak this in?
Oh.
I look at the Matildas and I think, you know what, how inspiring are they? And Hayley, like for someone who was never perhaps going to walk or play again, and then she comes out and that resilience and overcoming the impossible, I kind of look to her and the Matildas and go, you know what? Could that be us with the referendum, Waleed? Go Matildas!
Indeed, we can all agree on that. Senator, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.